Okay, this is the demonstration for how to create a slab and cut out either a circle or a square tile from your slab for the slab relief tile project. So some of you have taken ceramics last semester, and some of you haven't. For those of you who haven't taken ceramics last semester, you're going to get one of these boards. It's a wooden board covered in canvas cloth, like this. And it has bumpy clay on it. If it looks like it's got too many dried up chunks of clay, you can take a fettling knife and you can kind of scrape some of those gently. You don't want to do it too harshly because then you end up tearing the canvas, but you can scrape those dried up chunks of clay off into a trash can if you have a board that didn't get cleaned off very well last time somebody used it, okay? And then, so you're going to have a fettling knife, of course a lump of clay, a damp sponge. You're going to have 2 wooden guide bars. These are 2 wood bars that we're going to use as a guide for rolling out our slab. You're going to have a rolling pin that you're going to be using like this on top of your wooden guide bars, a needle tool, and 2 rib tools. You're going to have one rib tool that's very smooth like this and one rib tool that's serrated. You would think that this one would be the sharpest. It is not. I actually stabbed myself by accident with this one yesterday. Had a bloody finger. Be very careful with this one. This right here, this point is super, super sharp. So just be really careful, okay? All right, what you want to do when you start any clay project is use your damp sponge and just lightly dampen your clay board so you're not putting wet clay onto a very dry, powdery board. Okay, you don't want to soak it, you just want to make it slightly damp, like your sponge. Okay, then you're going to take your clay and throw it down like this. Sorry for the loud noise. You guys are going to be using clay straight out of the bag to make your slabs, so you don't need to wedge your clay. Wedging is a process that you have to do with clay that's been worked with already to get the air bubbles out. Since you're using clay straight out of the bag to make your slab, you don't need to wedge it first. You just want to throw it down to make a pancake shape like that, okay? Then you're going to take your 2 wooden guide bars and put them down on either side of your clay. And you can see that when you put it down, the clay is thicker than the width of the bar right now. And eventually you want to roll this out so that your clay is the same thickness as this guide bar. The reason we're using the guide bars is so that you can have a very even thickness that's the same as this bar, okay? So we'll put it down like that. And then we're going to take the rolling pin and roll the clay like this. Right now, my rolling pin is not touching the guide bars at all. And that's because the clay is still thicker than the guide bars. I'm going to push this apart just a little bit more so that it can flatten out in the other direction too, because I want to make sure I've got it at least 6 inches wide. Because if I don't roll it out at least 6 inches wide, my square is not going to fit on it. So let's see. Turn it in this direction. Push it like this. And then use my guide bars like this so I can make sure I've got it rolled out so that I can get that 6 inches that I need. So right now, the rolling pin is touching the 2 guide bars. You can hear it because the slab is now the same thickness as the guide bars. Okay, let's make sure I rolled it big enough. I'm using a circle, and it is just big enough. So that's good. I'm just going to actually make it a little bit wider in the other direction. So I'm squeezing it together this way right now so that I can now make it come this way a little bit more. Okay, that's good. Because it was exactly 6 inches, I want it to be a little bit more so I have a little bit of wiggle room with cutting it out. Okay, now there's some little bumps and wrinkles, and so you can use your sponge, your damp sponge. You don't want your sponge to be soaking wet. It has a little bit of water in it, and then I squeezed it out and over the sink so that it's just damp. If you use too much water, you're going to make your clay too wet and it'll be too soft to work with. So then you're going to even things out, use the serrated edge like this first. And that's going to help get all of those bumps even. And then you're going to use the smooth edge. You're going to smooth that back out. Go in that direction, go in this direction. I'm going to dampen the clay a little bit more. And then keep using the smooth rib. This is called a rib, to get all those lines nice and smoothed out. And this is going to ensure that you have just like a really nice smooth surface to work with when you start your tile. And it's going to be even. Okay, and you can finish up with the sponge again. Okay, so now we've got nice, smooth, even surface to work with. It is exactly the thickness of the bar here, which is the perfect thickness for your tile. You're going to take a template. If you're making a square tile, obviously you're going to take a square template. I'm making a circle tile, so I'm taking a circle template, lay it down on the clay, and then what I like to do is just use a needle tool to make a little line first. I don't like to cut it until I've made a line that's traced on there first. Okay, so there's the circle. And then after I've traced a line, then I use my knife to carefully cut it. If you have dried up chunks of clay like I do on your fettling knife, you can use the rib tool, scrape it off, because you're not going to get a clean cut if you have chunks of clay on your knife. So I'm just taking the chunks of clay off the tip of the knife, and now it's nice and smooth. So I can go straight down and through the clay, straight. Hold your knife straight up and down. If you hold it at an angle, you're going to end up with an angled edge to your tile in either direction. And you want to have a nice straight edge to your tile. So you're going to hold the knife straight up and down and just carefully go along the line that you traced. Okay, it's all the way around, and then you can pull off the edge. This is extra clay that can be used later for adding the applique, the raised parts of your relief tile. So we'll save that, okay? You can just add it back into a bag of clay that we'll use later for the applique. You can, at this point, just smooth your edges out a little bit, so you'll see that There's some little bumps from cutting it out, so you can smooth your edges. We can't use the clay this first day after cutting it to start carving away and adding applique, because it's a little too soft to do that with. So we have to leave it overnight. And in this case, it'll be over the weekend because you're doing this on a Friday. I'm going to do this tomorrow. We're going to leave them on the cart for your period. And you're going to have a sheet of plastic underneath it. And then after everybody lays their tiles down, I'm going to lay a sheet of plastic over them so that they don't completely dry out over the weekend, but there's a little bit of airflow coming through, just enough to let these set up and become the right hardness, which is about leather hard, to be able to be perfect for carving away and adding applique. So before you put this on your cart or your shelf tomorrow, you're going to take the needle tool and make sure that you've got your name and period on the back already, because everyone's are going to look the same, right? So you want to be able to identify your tile that you worked hard to create. You don't want to just grab anybody's old circle or square that they made when you come back to school on Monday. You want to get your tile that you made yourself. So make sure that you've scratched your initials, or you can do your whole name and your period. And then you can also, before you set it down to kind of set it up over the weekend, make sure your edges are nice and smooth, and make sure you've got these little wrinkles on the sides nice and smoothed out. You can carefully, if you want to, on the edges, you can use a rib to help you with smoothing out the edges like this, okay? And then again on the edge like that. But you want to be careful when you do that, because you can, if you press too hard, you're going to start taking away some of the clay, and you don't want to do that, because this thickness is perfect so that you have room to carve out. Because remember, some of your surface is going to be dug out from the clay so that it's very low, or actually lower than low relief, because it's going to be carved out. And we're going to have all those different levels to our pieces. Any questions about what you're going to be doing tomorrow about this? Anybody? Okay. All right.